With COVID 19, depending on your business, you may feel blessed or you may feel cursed. Small business owners are at their wits' end. Not only did they endure one partial or complete full shutdown, they're now smack dab in the middle of another. They not only had to lay off employees, people they call their families, but in some jurisdictions, they had to permanently close their doors. They may be even facing evictions from their landlords. Seems like everything on social media is around blaming all levels of government, the big box stores, lack of support for local shopping. It's enough to mess with your mind. How do business owners get a sense of control and resiliency? And that's coming up next on Mark Hain Live. Welcome back to Mark Hain Live. This is episode number 37. This is where small business owners and entrepreneurs pick up core skill sets to help them work on their business, not just in their business. I am your host, service expert and master of experiences, Mark Hain. And if you are here live with me, well, welcome. If you are watching a replay, it's also nice to have you here. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot to me. My special guest today is marketing and manifestation coach Brenda Trott, and we will get to her in just a moment. In the meantime, feel free to drop a question or your own thoughts in the comment box below so people can benefit from your experiences as well. You know me. I keep saying knowledge is power, but it's only powerful if we share it. And at the end of the day, if we can create this communication, everybody can learn. We can learn from your experience. We can learn from the experience of others around us. With everything going on, it is really hard not to feel like we are cursed. It's like sometimes you feel like the whole world is against you, which brings me to my question of the day. How are you coping? Do you have any strategies to mentally deal with what's going on? Like I mentioned, I'd love for you to be part of this conversation. Why not share your experiences in the comment box below? Would really love to hear where you're at. Joining me today is the Make Money in Your Sleep girl, Brenda Trott. Brenda helps small business owners increase their income through manifestation and marketing. She is the author of a slew of books. Like, really, if you go onto Amazon and look her up, I don't know how, I lost count how many books. A lot of books. And she's got several how-to books centered around media marketing. Brenda was nominated the best social media strategist in Houston, as is often called upon to by news outlets for her insights and perspectives. Brenda, welcome to the show. It is so nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
So Brenda, maybe we could kick off. Maybe before we get into today's topic, you could tell me a little bit about what you do for your clients.
What I do for my clients, well, now you said you're going to make it easy. The reason is because, prior to talking about this, I were talking about me just now embracing their blue. So for over 10 years, I have helped people get found online fast. And generally, we're talking about people with a local clientele. So the service industry, pest control, the people around the block, people that don't really have a business, a brick and mortar business for that drive by traffic. So we create that traffic online. But because of what I did personally, and the truth is that I could get somebody ton of leads, 100,000 leads a month. But if they had something going on inside them, like you said, feeling like you're cursed, then it doesn't matter how many I would get them. It would somehow dissipate, either self sabotage or something. A pandemic would happen. Who knows? But something would stop all of that from happening. So after doing some of my own inner work that I think we'll talk about today, I realized, well, it's a little bit longer than that, but basically, I have finally embraced that side of me because I realize that it's too selfish to keep to myself. Now, help others with that internal burn. Some might call it mindset. But if you would have told me that I needed to do mindset work, I would have rolled my eyes. I knew that there was enough money to go around in the world. I just didn't know why I didn't have any. And so it's more than that. It's kind of some inner work to help them just kind of get to the point where they can actually accept the income that they deserve and know that what they deserve is not what you're getting right now.
Right. And yeah, so that's a big differential. What you deserve versus what you're getting right now. Yeah. It seems like everywhere we turn, we are hearing about the struggles today through mindset. People are, how do you cope with stress? How do you cope with what's going on, and so on? Essentially, we're and I know that with my experience with small business owners, I get a lot of the negative talk. I get a lot of the woe is me talk. People are it's almost like they're in a mindset prison that they're trapped in. What causes this? Like, in your experience, why are we so limited in how we talk?
Well, there's a lot that goes into that. Some of it is just familiarity.
Okay.
That's what people know. Another is if you look at the news sites, people like to blame the media for all the negative doom and gloom. But the reality is that multiple stations have attempted to be just, happy, cheery, let's give the bright side, and people stopped watching. And it's because we're hardwired to look for the problems. I don't know if that is because we want to fix those problems or if there's something more innate to it. But when you tally on all the fact that that's what we're familiar with, that's what people go to talk about. That becomes the norm, and I'm not going to say it's difficult for some. They just haven't figured out how to break out of that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. And and I've seen a lot of people, and like I mentioned, as a consultant myself, when I talk to people, I am hearing, the doom and gloom. I'm hearing the woe is me. I'm it's like people, when things don't go their way, automatically adopt this victim mentality. Um, how much of this is how part of the programming that you were mentioning? You said that we're hardwired. How much of this victim mentality is hardwired in us? How much of it is just a personality trait?
I'm going to be honest and tell you that that would be outside my scope to
Okay.
to to say, but I can tell you that there is a natural instinct inside of us, and it's not necessarily natural to go doom and gloom, but it is natural to go to your set point. So if you are someone or someone who I'm sure you've experienced this yourself where um, maybe you have just landed a great account and this account just sets you up a level from where you've ever been before, the chances that something is going to happen, whether it's something that you did or something that happens on their end or a global end, and it dissipates, are significant. Like it's never without doing certain work, it doesn't just happen. You'll maybe be allowed to catch it, but it'll go away. And that's because internally you have this line of um, like a financial set point. This is how much I'm allowed to earn because this is what you taught yourself at a very young age, that this is what is acceptable. I'm allowed to live this lifestyle. It can go into family paradigm, but basically you had lessons that were taught to self-taught, interpreted by this naive young child that this is the way things are supposed to be. So anytime you venture out of that and you try to go bigger or better, your inner self, that child is like, no, that's not safe. And so all of these things are going to work and conspire so that it doesn't happen
Yeah, yeah.
because that wouldn't be safe.
Oh, you know what? And I know that you and I have had a conversation before this, and this is why I was so thrilled to invite you to come to this podcast, because I know that you yourself have had an awakening, and I'd really like to explore that with the audience. But first, I just wanted to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you buy my brand new book. It is called Lights, Camera, Action: Business Operational Excellence Through the Lens of Live Theater. And the book itself tears down what it's like to run a business, but I do it through the eyes of theater. I do it through the lessons we learn in theater. If you were to take those concepts and apply them to our businesses, we would run much, much better businesses. And it is available for sale on Amazon and on your favorite online bookstore. You can get more information about it at markhane.com/lights camera action. The link is in the show notes. That is the end of my shameless little plug about my book.
Yes. Is it really shameless?
I don't know. I'll let the audience figure that out. So Brenda, what was the catalyst for you? I mean, you talk about this idea of your programming and so on. Where you yourself felt cursed. Maybe you can share the story.
Okay, I can definitely I still it's very vivid to me. It was a few years ago. Very vivid to me. I had gotten to a point, this is pre-pandemic, gotten to a point in my life, and a lot of times too, you can kind of get to that spiral symptom. I had a lot of loss. My mom had passed, her husband had passed, my dog died in my arms, and all of this kind of when you're a solopreneur, you really have to be in a great state in order to continue. So I continuing clients and that kind of thing. And I'm driving for Lyft because I don't have to think to do Lyft. I don't have to consult. I just have to follow my little GPS, which wasn't always easy because I'm a girl. But I'm in my car one day and I know the power of positivity. I had $20,000 in debt. I was afraid to keep money in my bank account because I was afraid that it would be taken. So I was living kind of like under, and had been several years that had gone by of caring for ailing parents and before losing them. So I had kind of gotten myself into this hole of a situation. And I knew the power of positivity. I knew, great mindset. So I had my hands on the wheel and it was a beautiful day. And I said out loud, "Oh, what a gorgeous day. I have a paid for car. My tank is full." And beep, every single light on the dashboard went off, including what they call the red symbol of death. At that point, I really thought there was no other explanation. I was cursed. I was cursed. And so I thought there's no way that I can have the knowledge that I have, that I can, have the positivity that I have, and still have all of this stuff just happen to me. And fast forward 9 months later, not only had I taken care of $20,000 in debt, but I had paid cash for a trip to 3 different continents. I went to, um, Egypt and Israel and Greece, and, I look forward to more later.
Nice,
But,
nice.
yeah, so
And I'm excited to learn a little bit about how you were able to do that. I've heard that there are three situations in our lives that define who we become as adults, and it was something that really resonated to me when I learned this. One was when we are very young, between 3 and 5, where something happens and we feel something's wrong. It was the first time that we've realized, oh my goodness, something's wrong. My whatever that looks like. And then the second situation that happens around puberty when we feel like we don't belong. How many of you, when you were a teenager, felt you didn't belong? Right. And then the third happens in our early 20s when we realize that we are alone. And those three kinds of situations in how we grow up define who we become as adults. Would you agree with that?
absolutely, absolutely. I think the message that I wasn't aware of at the time was just how much that first defining moment matters, and it's not just one. Well, let
Yeah.
me tell you how just one part of my youth changed things for me. So it wasn't the parents or anything that anyone else did. It was how a 5-year-old me interpreted events. And if you can go back to, and there's usually not just one defining moment here, but this one was a big one that came up through processes that I learned. So I was a kindergartner, very first time going to, and the world was huge. By the way, I was 4 years old when I was in kindergarten. I hadn't quite made it to 5 yet. I was in the middle of a huge PTA sale, me money given to buy something at the PTA sale. This is my first time buying anything on my own, and I fell in love with this basket. It was an Easter basket, and inside the basket was this little blue bunny, and it was love at first sight. And I was so excited to take this bunny home. And I got home in an unusual time. You know, these are memories that are broken from when you're a child, but I remember feeling odd that my dad was home. He wouldn't normally be home, and he's in the living room, and he had that scowl look on his face that could make me cry, right? Just by changing the eyebrows. And he had this strange woman in the room. There was a mix up, and the money that I was given at the time, not all of it was mine. And she apparently had given money to get something too. So my father asked me, "What did you buy?" And I proudly held up this great big basket with the cellophane on it and the bunny that I couldn't wait to take out and hold. And he took it from me and he gave it to the woman. He said, "Will that do?" And she said, "Yes." And off they went. Well, if you think about this, all the implications that went on here. I make people upset when I buy things on my own without anybody else's, um, input. I things that I do buy, things that I fall in love with, leave, and they're taken from me. And all of these things like had a lot to do with how my adult self, my subconscious adult self, not the one that said, "I know the power of positivity. I know there's enough money to go around the world." But the inner one, the one that's actually doing all the driving when you're not paying attention, it told that part of me what life was supposed to be like. And so the process, would you like to know the process that I used to eliminate that and the results?
Yeah, well, you know what? Why don't we hang on to that? Because
Okay.
that can be a little bit of a hook. Because somewhere in that, I want to share with the audience. I want to share how you kind of got over this, and then some of the strategies that they can use to kind of overcome and shake themselves out of the mindset. And this idea that our past denotes our present and can very much define our future is going to be really important. We'll get to that in just a second.
When you're delivering an important speech to a huge audience, it's easy to lose your place or go way over time. Give yourself an advantage with the Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app. No more checking your watch or calling for time. The Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app keeps you on track with easy-to-see timers, even changing color for visual prompts during your speech. And you can set audio cues to practice or set it to vibrate so you don't even have to look. Be the pro you know you are. Download the app at speakerpresentationtimer.com.
How basically I went from owing $20,000 in debt, running from creditors, physically running from creditors, and to paying all of that off in 9 months' time and paying cash for a trip to 3 different continents. And it had to do with a memory from my childhood. Obviously, there was more to it. I think we're always an ever growing, well, we're not going to be alive unless we're working on ourselves. Then we're just dying, right? So, there's always something going on. But one particular event, you mentioned something, Mark, that I just want to touch on just for a second. You said that our past can define our future, and that's true, but it doesn't have to. So the process that I use is basically I actually literally rewrote my past. So yeah, I rewrote it because what are we doing but working with our subconscious mind? We're working with that inner child. So if it's basically like a scrub of that memory, which I shouldn't be telling over and over again, but and rewriting it the way I want it to go. So basically, I just took a piece of paper and I wrote out that situation as if I was that 5-year-old girl who had gone to the market, the PTA with money, had fallen in love with this little blue bunny, and took it home and realized that I had somehow inadvertently upset my father, which it wasn't really me, but this was my interpretation. Upset my father, had things instantly removed from me, and I couldn't be trusted with money. None of that, of course, was true. That was my interpretation. And so I wrote that out. And when I wrote that out, Mark, I'm not afraid to say it. Yes, I'm a girl, but boys can do it too. I let all of the emotions and all of the implications that that meant out on that piece of paper. So there were tears. There was hard scribbles, the anger of all the things that that meant to me and all the other memories and all the other things in my life where that probably implicated. All the times that I got something and then it fell apart. All the times that, I all of these different things that happen that could be implemented to that. I wrote all of that out on this paper, took a front side, took a back side. And then, so now it's out and I've experienced all of these emotions. And then I burned that sucker. Like I burned it. Every last bit. There was not anything left burnable. It wasn't just to crumbs. It was like completely ashed. But then I wasn't done because what I said is that we had to rewrite the story.
Right. So
that's when I took a new piece of paper out and I wrote my story, but it didn't take that long. I said, I brought this bunny home. I was so excited that I brought this bunny home and we grew up together. And that was just this reconnection. It wasn't much longer than that. Wasn't much longer than that I got this guy in the mail. And he is much bigger than the little blue bunny I remember. But he's my blue bunny and he grew up with me.
Aw.
So this was shown to me in, physical form that this happened. And of course, other things happened. I was led to different events and it took 9 months. It didn't happen, the next day I had a ton of money in my account, but I went from running from creditors to having savings to, to traveling with cash. So it made a huge, huge difference for me.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? Because what you've recounted is this idea that we're constantly telling ourselves stories about, and it's our way of, I think, being able to frame some semblance of reality into what's happened to us, some sort of a justification into what's happening to us. But really, at the end of the day, the only thing that happened was your father took the bunny away and gave it to a lady. Had probably nothing to do with you.
It was all my interpretation as a child.
Yeah.
And the important thing to note, Mark, is that this is a memory that I had to allow to come up. I went from feeling like I was cursed to realizing I was cursed with my own secret agenda. So, but the secret agenda was a secret. It wasn't like I walked around, just damning everything or poor meing everything. I was like, I have this. And yes, it was a struggle. Like I have all this talent. I have all this info, but it wasn't on the surface. I had no idea. I had to allow these memories to come up and I had to go through some processes to find where those issues were.
And so is there anything that you could share with the audience as far as steps that maybe they could take to help them kind of shake out why they view their reality the way they view it?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I have put together something called the Keys to Financial Success quiz. It's a 5 kinds of money quiz. Okay. And there's actually 5 different ways to look at your money. And so I am someone who doesn't like to take a lot of time all at once. It just doesn't happen. So I put together this simple quiz for others like me. And you can find that at financiallyfree.me. And you just answer one question and you get a less than 5-minute video response based on your answer to that question. And the next day I'll give you another one. so that you can slowly come up with these processes and just see, I'm explaining to you what certain types of things mean. And I think that's a really great way to start.
Nice. Nice. And thank you for sharing that link with us as well. I will have it down in the show notes on both versions of this video, part one and part two, just so you know. We'll make sure that we put it in the show notes. And if somebody wanted to get in touch with you directly, how could they do that?
That's probably the best way. You'll have information. You can directly reply to any email that you get once you start that application. Start that questionnaire.
Sure.
And if you have questions that come on through, go ahead and email me, and I will do my best to respond.
Wonderful. I'm hoping that this is making sense to you, and that listening to Brenda's story, that you have a semblance of connection to what she went through, and this idea that she wasn't stuck when she started writing out a story and kind of letting that story percolate, and actually then realizing that, hey, this is just a story. She was able to shake that up. So I hope that's helpful to you watching this. And Brenda, one of the I guess philosophies I have is that being a lifelong learner is really a great way to shake you out of your current circumstances. I believe that the more we learn, the more experiences we have outside of our kind of little bubble, the better it makes us. And I know that you yourself have like a master's degree that you've earned. You have over 10 years marketing experience, and you continue to be a lifelong learner. What, in your experience, what makes you keep driving forward? Is there any benefit to changing the way we think by being a lifelong learner?
Um, I want to answer this, but I have a caveat to it. So,
Okay.
as I mentioned before, yes, Mark, I think absolutely that if we're not learning, we're dying. I mean, that's to me, when you learn, you grow. And but the caveat there is that it can get to be to a point where if all you're doing is learning and you're not taking any action, then you're not really growing either. You're just kind of dumping more in. So I'm not even going to say there's a balance, but you have to understand that you can learn and then you can do, and you have to do both. But when you're talking about lifelong processes, yes, I have. It goes all the way back. I have an associate's and a bachelor's and a master's, and then I have certification after certification. And I think because the learning that I've done, I've always said, "Oh, I want something that shows, proves that I did that." But sometimes you can learn processes, right? Like I can teach you how to get found online, but other times you need to learn about yourself and about what motivates you, so that you can tap into that, so that all those processes will work.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel exactly the same way. Growing up introverted, growing up with very limiting beliefs, I didn't think I could do a whole swack of things, including something like this. Like, I never thought I'd ever be a speaker. I never thought I'd be able to put myself in front of a video camera and do the work that I'm doing today. However, I guess the more I learned about broadening my horizons, the more I realized, wait a second, I can do anything at all. And I know that a lot of times, I have a philosophy when it comes down, especially the stress aspect. I think, all too often as human beings, we got caught in this pressure of the immediacy of whatever's happening. For instance, you had your car, and I know that, I've had situations, all of a sudden my basement's flooded, my water tank exploded, and it's like, oh God, I had so many things now I have to work on. Why does my life suck? And I know, and I've come to a realization that in my experiences, that if we're harping on problems, we're not working on solving the problems. All we're doing is complaining about it. And I know that you
Yes.
are a huge fan of EFT, emotional freedom techniques. And I was wondering, would you be willing, after our break, to share EFT with the audience? Are you good for that?
Sure,
Oh,
absolutely. If my dogs will stay quiet.
oh yeah, it doesn't matter. You're sitting at home. So we will dig into this, and maybe a little bit of EFT will help everybody, and we'll get to that right after this.
When you're delivering an important speech to a huge audience, it's easy to lose your place or go way over time. Give yourself an advantage with the Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app. No more checking your watch or calling for time. The Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app keeps you on track with easy-to-see timers, even changing color for visual prompts during your speech. And you can set audio cues to practice or set it to vibrate so you don't even have to look. Be the pro you know you are. Download the app at speakerpresentationtimer.com.
Welcome back to Mark Hain Live. I am here with marketing and manifestation coach Brenda Trott. And we've been talking about the power of our brain, the power of our past driving our present, forcing our future. And, COVID-19 has really been, for a lot of us, it's been poison. It's just been absolutely, we've just been putting ourselves into situations where we just don't know what to do next. And I know, Brenda, you yourself, you've had to overcome issues within COVID.
Well, Mark, I said I wanted to bring COVID back up because this is really a great example of how we look at situations. So I'm not sure what state you're in, but I'm in Texas, and I know there's a lot of hoopla about how COVID has ruined this and ruined this and ruined that. I have clients that I've personally connected with. I have local restaurants that I've ordered takeout from, and I have just a myriad of places that I have visited and asked very very much from the heart. How are you doing? How is this affecting you? And Mark, almost 100% of the people that I've connected with have said this period has been better for them than ever before. The restaurant in particular said that they were doing 3 times in a month than what they were doing before. And so, am I saying that everyone is just prospering from this? No. But what I'm saying is that circumstances are circumstances. Okay? Breakups are breakups, but they're bridges to the next event. And so with COVID, I know that I was in a situation where I was working with a company that I did not want to work with anymore, and it took a pandemic for me to finally say, I'm gonna stop now. And so I know that there are others too. So there's you, and there's your way that you are moving forward, and then there's all the circumstances around. And there's a lot more that you can study and look into in talking about the mirror and how life is kind of like a mirror. You have to first decide what you want to do. I decide I'm going to raise my hands up in the air, but my mirror doesn't hold its hands up too yet, right? It takes a little bit of time for it to catch up, and so you can keep holding your hands up in the mirror. I'm not trying to downplay at all how serious things are and the traumatic losses that people have suffered. I just want people to understand that that it doesn't have to be seen as just a loss or as a suffering. It can just be seen as a circumstance, and you can manipulate your way around that.
Yes. And what's funny is, so you asked me what state I'm in. I'm actually north of Montana and south of Alaska. So
are you in a state? I'm so sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm surprised you didn't know by the accent, eh?
Yeah. I'm like,
but so one of the things that we've seen like in Canada, we've seen 69,000 small businesses close up. But what's really amazing is that in the same time frame, we've seen 63,000 new businesses launch, which tells me that we are very resilient in what we do. As entrepreneurs, as business people, we are very resilient in making sure that we can move forward. And again, it's not to downplay, because I'm sure there are hundreds of thousands of people who could be watching this right now saying, you don't understand my reality. You don't understand what it was like to have to close down a business that I've poured the last 20 years of my life into, that I've hired people who are my family and had to lay them off, right? This is not downplaying that at all. But at the same token, we do know that some people are thriving during this time because of the way that they were able to resource themselves or whatever. And we've got lots of videos on this channel about how to do business plans and how to resource yourself and how to do your planning and succession and so on. We got tons of that. But today it was this idea more about how do we deal with that stress? How do we get over this suffering for those people who aren't faring very well? And so I watched something, and this idea of in one of your videos, you mentioned emotional freedom techniques. And I thought this is something that needs to be shared. Could you enlighten us a little bit?
Absolutely. So EFT, emotional freedom technique, another a short form for that is called tapping, and it's actually a technique that has been used uh, with validity with veterans who've come back with PTSD, and it is, as far as I know, the reading that I've done, is one of the only forms that are proven to actually help with PTSD.
Mm.
So, post traumatic stress syndrome. I've also used this technique with children at the elementary level. Again, Texas, we're a high stakes testing state. And so I've dealt with that a lot with 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds who had such enormous pressure about testing and got them to a point where they could do this on their own. And just being an 8-year-old can be stressful, period, right? So one of the ways that I would teach an 8-year-old to do this is the karate chop point, and it's kind of like the middle point of the side of your hand,
Hmm.
and you can just tap with the other hand on there like a karate chop.
Hmm.
Okay, so just doing this, I've done this in traffic.
So instead of doing you're doing this.
Yes, it just helps to calm. And so we're using the points that actually that um, pressure points on your system. So that's just one of them. One thing to know about EFT is that it's a release of these emotions, and it can be calming. And oftentimes when you're led by someone through it is you'll speak. So, I would say something and then you would repeat that as we're tapping through. But you don't have to say anything. Sometimes you just get this overwhelming and I don't know if you know the history behind this, but I became an entrepreneur because I had PTSD, and I had agoraphobia. And so there's even another stress, not being encouraged to leave the home is I didn't, uh, it was familiar. Okay. Into being this sick person that I was that couldn't leave my home. And so what I'm trying to say is that sometimes you just get this overwhelming feeling of anxiety and you don't know where it's coming from. Well, why are you anxious? Well, I don't know. And then you can start. So, I don't know why I'm anxious, and you're tapping on the top of your head.
And so you would
And you
actually tap your head and say that at the same time? Is that
you can say that,
okay?
but you don't have to say anything. You can receive relief just by doing that.
Okay.
So top of the head, I'm anxious. I don't know why. I can't leave my house. It's scary. I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my employees.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to keep this business open. I don't know what's going to happen. But whatever does, I will be okay. Everything works out for me in the end.
Wow.
Okay, that's a very, very short
Sure.
version
And
of
so we're
what we
not
would do.
necessarily talking about a mantra. So it's not kind of like the Saturday Night Live, I'm good and gosh darn it, everybody loves me kind of mantra. What you're doing is making it very situational as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You can make a situation because that's what you're living in. You're living in a situation. You're not living in the clouds. I mean, that'd be really hard to eat up there. But I mean, so the thing about EFT that I love about it is that it's self-regulating. It's something that most anyone can do. I've had a few people who said that they can't actually reach, certain points. Can other people tap for you? Yes. If you don't, if that's uncomfortable for you, you can just think about the certain points. You can speak, you cannot speak. But to just push down positive affirmation after positive affirmation when all of this inner work is still not there, when that secret agenda is still there, you're basically creating yourself a volcano. You're just shoving all of this good stuff so that it can all just erupt on you, right? And when I say that, you can probably point to different parts in your life where that happens.
Sure.
And so when you're uncertain about something, when you're in traffic, when you're delayed at the bank, when somebody approaches you within 1 foot and coughs, I mean, you can just you can release those things, because when you release things, it keeps that energy going. I wanted to tell you something briefly too, because I got so excited because I know I was going to talk to you. When I did the rewrite of my script and my bunny reappeared, and I had that $10,000 debt, it didn't all come from one place. I didn't have, I didn't know. So if you're a business owner right now in COVID and you don't know what's going to happen, that's okay. Just be open to letting things happen. And I had, different variety of things that happened. Did it all come from one client? Absolutely not. Did it all come from a job? Absolutely not. But all of these different things that happened. And one of those things was I was getting random checks in the mail. And I thought, who gets checks in the mail? Like, I haven't even written a check in I don't know how long. Well, I do. And it's so funny because I got another check in the mail this week, knowing that I was going to become talking to you. And I just got so giddy about it. It's like, so, the lasting effects, and letting my little girl know, right? That little 5-year-old know that it's okay to spend money. And there's other mistakes that she's afraid of. She's afraid of spending it on the wrong things. She's afraid of, there's a lot, but it has lasting effects, and just being open and being aware. And it doesn't, just making that decision doesn't even have to be, I decide I'm going to stay open, or I'm going to close. It can be, I decide that I'll figure this out.
Yeah.
Just start there and have that allowing. And you can tap, I decide that the answers will come to me. I decide. And
I love, sorry, you're frozen again.
anxiety.
But I love the fact that you said this thing about being open to it, because one of the things that I've been a big fan through all my episodes is this idea that be open to it, but understand that you can't necessarily do everything yourself. And the more you're open to opportunities, and more you're open in your communication with your team, with your stakeholders, with your customers, the more things will come to you. And I know that a lot of business owners are might watch this and say, it's my business. I can't let people know I'm suffering. And so when we do this, you mentioned a cautionary. One of the cautionaries is don't just hold things down. Don't just pretend you're okay and put it down. Deal with it. And EFT is one way to deal with it. Are there any other is there anything else that we haven't talked about thus far?
I'm a real fan of journaling, real fan of just getting it out. And if you need to rip that sucker up so it doesn't, and rewrite the story, you can rewrite your past, just like you can. That could be a whole nother episode, because I believe there's power.
And it's interesting.
There's a power in the pen. Yeah.
I had a friend who every day she wrote one thing that she was grateful for and put it on a piece of paper and put it in the jar. And then on December 31st, she empties the jar and she goes through 365 little slips of paper. And she said, when she was talking about it, you could see her shine. You could see that her being it seems so fulfilled. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't wait 365 days to go through those. I've saw those types of things on Facebook, and I love it. I absolutely would do that, but do more than that.
Yeah.
Right? You challenge yourself to write 5 things every day, and then periodically go back and read those 5 things that you read, because that feeling at the end of the year when she read 300 things that she was grateful for, you can have that all year long.
Sure.
And when you have that, that's the thing about energy. So yeah, there's a lot that you can do to help yourself feel better. And when you feel better, you are better.
And I think that you start making better decisions as well. Right?
Absolutely.
Brenda, thank you so much. This has been so amazing. I really appreciate that you could be on the show today. Could you just remind everybody one more time how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to financiallyfree.me. You'll read a little bit about my story, and you can take the quiz. It's just 1 question a day. I think there's 4 or 5 questions, and you'll get immediate insight based on your answer. So it's not one quiz and this is where you are. It gives you insight on where to go, and you can respond to any of my emails. And I just want to give a shout out to one of my clients too, who she said that EFT and some of the stuff that I worked with, she said it's better than therapy. And she went from $700 a month to her first $10,000 a month. So take the quiz. What's it going to hurt?
You hear these stories and you hear it enough times, there's got to be something to it. I know that some people are going, oh, hodgepodge is just a lot of, but you hear this enough times, and it's like you have to start thinking about, well, you know what, if I start putting myself in a mindset where I can be open to those opportunities, then maybe it'll just happen. Yeah. Brenda, thank you so much. I
Thank
really love
you.
to acknowledge you for being here today, to share your knowledge, to share your expertise, to share your story. It's been such a huge, such a huge value. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Why don't you give me a thumbs up if this was of value to you? As always, my offer stands. If you would like 30 minutes of my time to brainstorm your business with you and your team, why don't you book yourself 30 minutes on my online calendar? The link is below. It's the one that says meetme.so/Mark Hain. As always, I am at your service. And if you haven't done so yet, why don't you hit the subscribe button and ring the bell? That'll give you first dibs whenever I bring you fresh content that will help you work on your business, not just in your business. My name is Mark Hain. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and dare be the exception.